Top 10 latest movies in 2020. Trying to find the best movie to watch on Netflix or other platforms can be a daunting challenge. We've taken the time to dig for new releases to bring you a list of latest movies that are streaming right now. We've thumbed through the library and assembled a list of some of the best films currently available for streaming. So without further to say, let's jump into our list. Number 10, Beanpole. Dramas don't come much bleaker than Beanpole, director Kantemir Balagov's wrenching story about the damage caused by war and the exceedingly high cost of survival. In the 1945 Leningrad, still recovering from the end of World War II, Blankiya, Victoria Moroshnichenko, aka Beanpole, works as a nurse, even though her military service has left her with a condition in which she becomes temporarily frozen. Overpoweringly desolate and moving, it's a vision of paralyzing individual and national PTSD, and ultimately of women banding together to forge a new future. Number 9, Rewind. Autobiographical tales of trauma don't come much more wrenching than Rewind, director Sasha Neulinger's non-fiction investigation into his painful childhood. A bright and playful kid, Neulinger soon transformed into a person his parents didn't recognize. A change they soon learned that was brought about by the constant sexual abuse he and his younger sister Becca was suffering at the hands of his cousin and two uncles, one of whom was a famed New York City temple cantor. Not just a portrait of Neulinger's internalized misery, it's also a case study of how sexual misconduct is a crime passed on from generation to generation, a fact borne out by further revelations about his father's upbringing alongside his assault. Number 8, Vitalina Varela. The darkness is all-consuming, as is despair over a lost past and future, and a purgatorial present. In Vitalina Varela, Pedro Costa's aesthetically ravishing true tale of its protagonist, a Cape Verde resident who returns to Portugal mere days after her estranged husband. Vitalina wanders through this dilapidated and gloomy environment, which Costa shoots almost exclusively at night, the better to convey a sense of ghosts, navigating a dreamscape of sorrow, suffering and disconnect. Number 7, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. As envisioned by writer-director Eliza Hittman, Beach Rats, Autumn's with child circumstance leads to a harrowing ordeal of uncomfortable doctor visits, financial anxieties, and incessant indignities suffered at the hands of men, be it sexually harassing classmates, her drunk and uncaring father, Ryan Eggold, or a boy, Theodore Pellerin. She and Skylar meet on the bus, forced to navigate a chauvinistic world that treats them as disposable sexual playthings, denigrates them as whores when they attempt to fulfill that role, and then thwarts their desire for agency and independence at every turn. Autumn's saga is all the more heartbreaking for being so ordinary. Drenched in silence that conveys the loneliness of its heroine and speaks volumes about the tacit understanding and compassion shared by. Number 6, Youre Out. In the fictional northeast Brazilian town of Youre Out, residents are puzzled to discover that their home has disappeared from all GPS maps and their cell service has ceased. Teaming with his former production designer Juliano Dornelles, director Kleber Mendonça Filho, Neighboring Sounds, Aquarius, delivers an allegory of zonked-out weirdness with Youre Out, which quickly has locals engaging in a do-or-die battle with a pair of interloping Sao Paulo bikers and a group of murderous Western tourists, led by a hilariously peculiar judokayer, who have traveled to South America to partake in a variation of the most dangerous game. Number 5, Saint Maude. Hell hath no fury like a religious zealot scorned, as demonstrated by writer-director Roseglass's feature debut. A young hospice nurse named Maude, Morfydd Clark, comes to believe that her mission from God with whom she speaks and feels inside her body is to save the soul of her terminally ill new patient, famous dancer Amanda Jennifer Ill. What begins as a noble attempt to share pious belief and provide comfort for the sick swiftly turns deranged, as Maude is possessed by a mania impervious to reason and enflamed by both the slights she receives from Amanda and others and her own mortal failings. The sacred and the profane are knotted up inside this young woman, whom Clark embodies with a scary intensity that's matched by Glass's unsettling aesthetics, marked by topsy-turvy imagery and pulsating, crash. Number 4, Gretel and Hansel. Oz Perkins is a horror lyricist fixated on grief and female agency, and both factor heavily into his atmospheric reimagining of the classic fairy tale. In a countryside beset by an unknown plague, teenage Gretel, it's Sophia Lillis, refuses to work as an old creepy man's housekeeper and is thus thrown out by her mother, forced to take her young brother Hansel, Sam Leakey, on a journey through the dark woods to a convent she has no interest. Drenched in ageless, evil imagery, full of triangular pagan symbols, pointy-hatted silhouettes, and nocturnal mist, and boasting a trippiness that becomes hilariously literal at one point, Gretel and Hansel casts a spell that feels at once ancient and new. Number 3. The Assistant. Kitty Green's The Assistant is the first great Met You film, a scathing look at the mundane day-to-day ways in which gender imbalanced abuse and unfairness are built into workplaces. Though you won't hear Harvey Weinstein's name uttered once, his presence is palpable throughout this clinical story about Jane, a sterling Julia Garner, whose position as the low woman on the totem pole at a film production company necessitates enduring mistreatment of both a subtle and overt sort. Whether being chastised by her boss, who's only heard in hushed phone calls, or sharing quiet, pointed glances with her female colleagues, Jane is a victim of both exploitative men and, just as severely, a corrupt institutional structure that perpetuates itself by fostering cutthroat ruthlessness and alienation. Epitomized by Jane's meeting with a cruelly calculating human resources rep, Succession's Matthew McFadden, whose threats are all the more harrowing for being both implied and logical, it's a portrait of sexism's many insidious forms. Number 2. The Wild Goose Lake. As with his prior Black Coal, Thin Ice, Chinese director Diao Yinan's The Wild Goose Lake has a coiled intensity that amplifies its romantic fatalism. Diao's neo-noir follows a gangster named Zhu Zhenong, who, after killing a cop in a criminal enterprise gone awry, partners with a bathing beauty prostitute named Lu Ai, Wei Lun Mei, in order to reunite with his estranged wife Yang Shujin, Wan Qian, also she might collect the reward on. Rife with betrayals, manhunts and shootouts, the auteur's narrative is constantly taking sharp, unexpected turns, and the same is true of his breathtaking direction, which reveals unseen figures and twists via precise camera work and expressionistic flourishes that are married to a realistic depiction of rain-soaked Wuhan and its lawless lakeside communities. Number 1. First Cow. Adapted from Jonathan Raymond's novel The Half-Life, Reichert's slow-burn drama focuses on a nomadic 1820s chef named Cookie, John Magaro, who after arriving at a Pacific Northwest fort, befriends and goes into business with on-the-run Chinese loner King Lu, Orion Lee, baking and selling popular oily cakes made with milk stolen from a dairy cow owned by wealthy chief factor, Toby Jones. Framing characters amidst forest greenery or through constricting cabin windows, and setting its action to the serene sounds of its rural environment, snapping twigs, chirping birds, running water, human breath, it's an empathetic vision of profound male friendship and perilous capitalist. This was our list for the top 10 latest movies streaming right now. Did you watch any of these movies? Let us know which film you liked the most. If you want to stay tuned for interesting topics and different aspects of life, simply subscribe to this channel and you will be up to date.